as a boy, growing up in the concrete jungle of downtown Los Angeles, Pete Rathbone dreamed of getting his hands in the dirt, a future in farming. So after attending one of the top ag schools in the country, that'd be the Agricultural Mechanical College of Texas, Pete couldn't wait to get his hands on his own farm, which he did by buying some property near the Snake River in the 1950s, where he grew seed and sugar beets until, well, for more than 40 years. It was during that time Pete started getting his hands on something else. Still farm-related, but probably something you didn't know even existed, unless you're of a certain age or career. Pete Rathbone turned a boredom of antiquing into decades of hands-on accumulating certain hand tools. So many, he created his own museum in his own backyard in Marsing. The well-worn walk across the gravel driveway is a standard for Sherry Fanning, because on the other end of her stroll
Finally found us, huh?
Yeah.
is where she usually finds her partner Pete,
You guys can get closer, you know.
inside the old converted farm shed.
Pete, you got a lot of stuff in here.
Yeah,
Converted
there's a lot of stuff in here, all right.
to keep stock of Pete Rathbone's stockpile of stuff.
Didn't realize it until not too long ago. I've been a collector all my life.
Hand planters to implement seats to sugar sacks to corn shellers.
That's how that works.
That's how that works. Don't ever let me buy another corn sheller. I've got all the corn shellers I want.
However, Pete can't say the same thing
Or you could adjust them.
about wrenches.
So this is it.
Well, this is it. It isn't the largest collection in the world, but it's the only one that's hung up in alphabetical order by a company.
Rows and rows
Starts on the second row, goes around.
and walls
Well,
wrapped in wrenches.
my late wife really hammered on me to concentrate on wrenches.
So this is her.
And yeah,
There are some that are exactly the same and some that are really rare.
some of them are.
But all were standard issue farm equipment pre-World War II.
When you bought a mowing machine or a rake or a sulky plow or cultivator, they gave you a wrench to fit all the nuts on it.
Pete became a nut sometime in the mid-1980s while following his wife around to antique shops.
And the gal noticed I was a little bit bored. And she said, you ought to get your husband interested in collecting. Mine collects alligator wrenches. I didn't know what an alligator wrench was. That's those ugly ones up there on the top in the center.
Well, Pete was hooked,
I'm the only guy that's got one of these.
and he's been ratcheting up his collection since.
Okay, so what's the grand total?
Well, I think there's between 5,000 and 6,000 out here.
You haven't counted?
Well, I counted a long time ago and around 5,000, but they're hard to count.
I mean, when you got them, you got to flaunt them.
How much would you say you spent on all of these?
Oh, God. Woo, a lot.
Pete may not know the total value of what he has in bent metal, but
I've got one
he knows a few.
right over there. I gave $7,000 for it.
$7,000.
I haven't told many people that, but yeah.
And the Texas A&M alum will gladly tell anyone that stops by the Our Lucky Star Farm Museum in Marsing.
Oh, yeah, we had the RVers in here last week, and about 20 of them, and
Or he'll just show them one of the 4 books he's written about wrenches.
the history of old-time implement companies and the wrenches they issued.
Who finds this useful?
Wrench collectors.
Pete's met and made friends of many of them over the years.
Oh, I have a friend in Nebraska that he buys them by the 55-gallon barrel full. It was a friend of mine in Tennessee paid $20,000. I had a friend in Waterloo, Iowa.
But none with a compilation like this.
Most guys have them in buckets and barrels underneath the workbench.
Pete credits wrenches with putting a twist on his retirement years.
Well, you have to have a hobby. You know, a lot of these old guys, they get so old and they don't have anything to do and they just die. So you need something to keep the interest up.
And that's just how Sherry sees it,
And I think people that have interests are interesting people.
which is good, since Pete, who's pushing 91 years of age,
1925.
isn't planning on pushing away from his hobby anytime soon.
Is there a quit when it comes to this?
No, there's no quit with this. I mean, you know, why quit?
Well, Pete quit the farming business back in the mid-90s when it was either go big or get out. So he got out, and that left him plenty of time to travel in his hunt for his historic wrenches. Yes, Pete has written 4 of those history of old-time implement companies and the wrenches they issued books, telling us he pumped $65,000 into that first edition. But he says he sold 3,400 of them, so I guess that's a wash, which is why he's currently working on his 5th volume.